They're back. The Ashley Madison hackers dump user data to Tor. Is Amazon running a sweatshop or what? And Uber's finally going public? Maybe? We'll see.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of CrunchWeek. Are you guys ready to talk about extramarital affairs?
Will it get us out the door faster into the sun and parks away from the office? That's what I have in mind right now.
Yeah, actually it will.
Good. Then let's do it.
Okay, so a little backstory. We're talking about Ashley Madison and the hack that is... It's embarrassing because, of course, the whole idea is if your name is part of a bunch of data that was supposedly taken by a group of hackers called the Impact Team, then you might be somebody who was cheating on your spouse.
Trying to, at least.
Or maybe
Maybe
just
unsuccessfully.
and maybe just doing some research. But in any case, back in July, there was data that was supposedly taken. The people who claimed responsibility for the hack said, if Ashley Madison, and there were a couple other websites that this parent company owned, if it's not shut down, we're going to leak all the data.
Right.
Earlier this week, there was a huge data dump that was leaked onto a Tor website. And
20 gigabytes, I think? Something huge like that.
it was a large number of addresses.
Quick question though, why did this Impact Team want to shut down Ashley Madison? Are they against cheating?
There was some moral thing, right? That this is a terrible website, and if you don't understand security, you're a good target anyway, but you're also doing bad things.
Also,
so there's a little
delete.
sort of moral high road thing.
I agree, but there's the delete option. They were charging people to delete their data from the service and then not actually doing the full deletion. And the hacking group didn't like they were charging money and taking revenue and then not doing what they said they were going to do, which is full deletion.
Yeah.
So I think that's also part of the moral argument you're making.
Exactly, yeah. So the story was there was some kind of pro account where if you were like, I really need to make sure that no one knows that I'm using this website, and now I'm out and I want all of my history deleted forever. I never existed. Ashley Madison says, yeah, sure, for $10 a month, we'll do that for you.
Oh, okay.
But apparently they weren't, or that's the claim anyway, which is basically like stealing.
Right. Also, kind of extortion to delete your data and charge money for that definitely feels a little bit backwards, or at least in reverse.
Yeah, like if you want your privacy,
you shouldn't
we
have
can
to pay
do
for
that for
privacy.
you.
What a nice life you have here. It'd be a shame if something happened to it.
What's interesting also about this is that the former CTO of Ashley Madison gave a statement to, I don't exactly remember who it wasn't us, and he said, if there's credit card information that is in that, data dump, it didn't come from us because we never had that information. The payment processing, we get a processed ID. That's the only thing that we have. So if there are credit card numbers, they're coming from somewhere else. But security researchers are saying, but there are credit card numbers in here, or at least partial ones. So it's hard to know what's really going on. You would think the CTO is probably the person who would know, or at least knew when he was running the show, which he no longer is.
Well, given the massive hack, he's probably not the best CTO out there, just given that their technology kind of went kaput.
Touche.
Yeah. I wouldn't really trust him. So is there like a warning for the rest of us about what we should and shouldn't do online out of this, or is this kind of like?
I mean, there's always a warning for what we should and shouldn't do online. That's why you see apps like Snapchat popping up. That's why you have Yik Yak.
Yeah.
But also, just talking about the whole moral implications of cheating, I mean, this is maybe a topic for a different show, but that's why polyamory could be great. You're just accepting, You
don't have to stick it in the corner, put a blanket over. You can just
you tell your husband, hey, I'm going to seek out these relationships with other people. You have a talk about it, you agree upon it.
And then one of you starts to cry, everyone gets jealous, it all melts down. Who gets the dog? And then it's great. It's great. SF 2015 hashtag.
I think before we move on, also, just because someone's email address is associated with an account on Ashley Madison doesn't even mean that they were ever involved. So there's a little bit of like...
Right. It could have been an angry ex or someone who set up that account for them.
Right. Or some terrible coincidence.
Or maybe you got drunk once and never opened the service again. Right. Maybe some weekend on a Saturday night you were all mad at each other, and then you forgot about it. Like that's
It could happen.
Especially
while drinking.
Don't drink, kids.
Speaking of drinking, what are the executives drinking over at Amazon? There was a story, this is actually last weekend, but it got a lot of attention earlier this week about Amazon and a lot of current and former employees. I think the New York Times talked to over 100 of them. That say Amazon is pretty much the worst place to work. In certain areas anyway.
Right, but the thing is that some people are actually, they're all about that kind of work life. They just believe so much in what they're doing at Amazon that they want to be working those long hours. I was reading an article today where someone likened it to running a marathon. It's painful, it's a lot of work.
Your nipples will bleed.
Your nipples will
I did not-
That happens during marathons.
I did not read that
So
in
I've
time
heard.
stories.
I don't run that long.
That's true, actually. If you just Google like, bloody nipples marathon,
I did not
there's a
make
lot
that
of guys' shirts that are
I
just like
think you
just
did
blood.
make that up, or I think it's happened to you.
This is
but-
definitely a
This is
thing.
going to
I
be
have
a great
seen
Google
this.
search in about 5 minutes
Yeah.
when we're done.
So,
You're going to love it.
you were saying.
Right. No, I was saying that some people are all about that work life, and also, what other people are also talking about that this is kind of typical of Silicon Valley. It doesn't mean that it's the right way to be doing things. And actually, the co-founder and CEO of Asana, Dustin Moskovitz, had this post on Medium about work-life balance and the importance of that. And he was talking about his time early on at Facebook and how he would overwork himself and really didn't have that work-life balance, and it ended up actually taking away from the work that he was doing at Facebook and was actually maybe not as good for the company in the long run. Of course, he's kind of using this as a way to talk positively about his current company, Asana, and say like, yes, we have this great work-life balance, we really care about our employees.
Also, when rich people tell me to work less, I kind of just, I'm like, screw you and your billions of dollars. Yeah, tell me to run my life with
that
my
must
$8.
be nice.
Yeah,
Right.
oh, you take time off now on vacation? Good for you.
I know. If I work just
Right.
slightly less here, then I just have lots of emails that I'm
then
not answering.
I would just get in trouble. Like, what are you saying,
You
Dustin?
actually get demoted if you
Hashtag.
don't work
Right.
really hard. I wonder how much. It's Amazon, of course, is based up in Seattle. I wonder how much, because you mentioned Silicon Valley, I wonder how much that has to do with it. Obviously, Amazon is not the only company up in the Pacific Northwest, but it is maybe a little bit far enough removed that some employees are like, this is crazy. Nobody should be working this way. Where some of the rest of us think like, that's kind of status quo, right or
I
wrong.
think the status quo more at startups. I think if you're a younger company, the
Yeah.
working hours are longer, but Amazon is worth several $100 billion. It's been around for 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
I think they should have a culture of not being quite so harsh. I mean, because the stories in the article were really, really sad.
Family bereavement was one of the topics. I mean,
Right.
that's the sort of thing that you think, if you're a company like Amazon, you're competing with a variety of other companies.
Right.
You want to give people really good benefits, especially the whole trend we have now, where you can basically take maternity leave for
Right,
5
a year.
years.
Right,
For
and then
5
there
years.
was someone-
Until your kid's 18, then you have to come back. It's like, very flexible.
Right, and then there was someone I think who was talking about feeling the need to outsource her work because she just could
do
not
it.
take time off, so she needed someone else in some other country to pick up the slack for her.
I just can't imagine having to do that. I would just be so sad. Like you would have no functional life outside of the office. And that's just, a little narrow.
I feel like this won't affect Amazon's bottom line at all, but maybe in the long-term sense, it could affect their hiring process.
Well, everyone else wants to get people on board now, take care of them, and retain them to avoid playing the talent wars again and again, whereas Amazon has this 2-year almost like churn cycle, which is very unique and different. I wonder why they've built that culture, because they probably lost a lot of good people along the way to startups in Seattle, to Microsoft maybe, even just down here, for companies that are going to take better care of you and not, try to take every last ounce of energy out of you.
How long do you think the hours are typically at Uber? Speaking of companies on the up and up growing rapidly.
Actually, I have no idea about that. That'd be a good question. I would presume among the executive classes they're quite long, but probably normal-ish among the just regular staff.
I would imagine, but I'm not sure offhand. If we're talking about the drivers, are we talking about the drivers as employees right now?
I'm kind of talking about the employees, considering this sort of leads us into our next topic.
Absolutely.
That Uber, we've known for some time. I mean, Uber is an extremely valuable company, at least on paper. They want to go public.
Yep.
And it sounds like this is happening sooner than later. So those employees probably don't mind the long hours because they may get a payday pretty soon.
Right, if you're in an 18 to 24 month IPO ramp, which was the story out from Reuters today, you probably don't mind putting in 2 more solid years of extra work because you want that large payout, that large payday. But in 10 years, when Uber's worth $200 billion, not 50, if you're still working 80 hours, 100 hours a week, you're not going to do a good job, and you will burn out and you will leave. And we've seen this, in journalism quite often, that people just kind of get sucked into the cycle of it and leave, often for jobs that are a little bit less intense. And that makes me sad in the micro and then also in the macro in this larger context. But Uber IPO, kind of finally going to happen, and I'm glad so we can stop talking about it.
Yeah.
We've sat here on CrunchWeek and talked about Uber's fundraising, growth, problems, Travis's haircut so many times. I really just want to move the fuck on to something else. Apparently 18 more months of waiting, and then we'll have this IPO out. But
it's hard to believe that Uber could get much bigger than it is now. I mean, obviously it's expanding into different markets. It's experimenting with, earlier this week they changed the location of the Eats option. We don't have that in San Francisco, but there are a variety of cities across the U.S. They're going to be more of a point A to point B for all sorts of things, not just people.
Yeah, but as a fair caveat, I mean, the markets today and the last couple of days have been really, really rough in tech, and so we've seen a lot of really sharp share price declines, record lows for Twitter, Box, HubSpot, all these companies, and not actually not HubSpot in that case, but they're really going into the IPO market after it had a period in the sun. And so I'm curious to see what the impact that'll have on their valuation when they do kind of push the button, and if they can avoid kind of market chop that could decrease their value. But that's kind of a longer term question.
All right, well, that's enough for us, at least for this episode of CrunchWeek. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. See you next time.
Thanks.